Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 5:32 p.m. Let's move into roll call. Luke Aguilar?
Here.
Joey Bryant?
Here.
Dr. Serafini?
Here.
Trey Justin? Brittany Kinsella?
Here.
Elena Lenway?
Here.
Jacqueline Robinson?
Here.
Renee Stiles?
Here.
Brittany Stamnitz?
Here.
Patrick Stanton?
Here.
Spencer Sutton?
Here.
Tom Botron?
Here.
Moving on to approval of this week's agenda. You can take a minute to review that. I would like to entertain a motion to approve this week's agenda. Luke moves. Is there a second? Elena seconds. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Moving on to the approval of the March 8th and the March 13th minutes. You could review both of those. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the last two meetings. Brittany moves. Is there a second? Elena seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Moving on to section 5, reports. I don't have any reports.
The advisors do. I'll just share this one, even though Pat may be doing this in a minute. The Budget Finance Committee at their March 14th meeting did approve the recommendations for the, and I'll quickly go through them, not read the entire thing, for the supplemental allocations in the amount of $38,251.36. This was in regards to the supplemental funds request from Supply Chain Management for the Weber State Case competition, the National Association for Music Education, American Choral Directors Association, and the CWU Trumpet Ensemble, as well as the Club FM to send students to the Intercollegiate Broadcasting Conference, Wildcat Films to send students to the BEA Conference, Public Health Club to send students to the National Health Disparities Conference, and finally for a student to attend the Gathering of Native Americans workshop. So all of those were approved by Business and Finance Committee at their meeting on the 14th. The only other one that I have on there is just, again, we're going to go in here briefly when we get to the voting section to go through the recommended allocations. I'll share the feedback from the administration on their side under that section, and we'll go through the justification, but wanted to thank you all again, knowing probably it was beneficial to have such a long break since we met last, but since we did meet for 9 hours, just the amount of time and effort and thoughtfulness that went into the deliberations, I know it was a very long day, and you all stuck it out. So it's greatly appreciated, all the hard work, because, again, this really is your all's voice going forward for these recommendations. I know all the funding groups greatly appreciate it as well.
So, after those were approved by the BFC, the amount left for what we had planned for the pool supplementals this year is $33,583.95.
Yeah, we can probably go to that.
So, when we started the year, we picked a number that we felt could cover most of the supplementals. Those of you that were around in the fall probably remember a discussion that, like, that isn't necessarily the end number. It doesn't have to be that number. And if we get to the end of the year and we're short, and there's a really wonderful proposal, there's a way to possibly allocate slightly more than that. And then there's another thing that's going on right now, and that this is the end of the 4-year base funding cycle. And a lot of you that have something to do with some of these areas that are funded by S&A are vaguely aware that at the end of that cycle, any amounts that are spent come back to the S&A fund. And kind of as a quick estimate, I think it's something like $450,000 is going to come back. Now, it seems like an awful lot of money, but you have to remember that we gave out $6.5 million the the last 4 years. So it's actually under 2% of what was given out that'll probably come back. And it's spread out in hundreds of little buckets. So if everyone spends 97 and 99%, they feel like they did what they could with the funds and put it to work. And then there's this big chunk of money back that could also be put to work. Of course, we're not to June. We don't know exactly what some of the areas will spend by June. The last time they went through this process, it was about $500,000 that came back unspent. And that is something that, is a resource that was collected from students as a fee, and the intention is to spend it out on the same students that paid the fee. So that might open up some opportunities to fund some things that, maybe in the normal course of events we wouldn't fund. Does that make sense? I'm trying to put it in.
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
Okay.
Well, and to go off this slightly, because this is also going to come up in one of the requests tonight, is those areas in any funding that's left there will cycle back unless that area comes forward to request that those funds be held. And that's up to the committee if we say, yes, we're allowing those funds to carry over. Normally, we would only do that in the case to where there's a specific program or event or rationale behind why they weren't able to spend it now. Otherwise, that would just be part of their normal base funding for next year. So we can talk about some of those as they come up, but in most cases we wouldn't necessarily have it carried forward, again, unless they have something planned that for reasons outside their control falls into the next academic year, or next fiscal year, I mean. So we'll go through tonight. I know we have 2 requests that we're voting on that is just over $1,500. The part for us to be mindful of and where we can have more discussion next week is whether or not the committee wants to increase the amount of supplemental funding that we have set aside this year. We put the $150,000 there based on how many supplemental requests we've had in the past few years, as that was about adequate for what we had coming in. That was also before there was some discussion and some looking at the debt policy and what we actually have available to use for supplementals outside of that. I will put this just for reference, which is simply just doing the math, that we had $150,000 set aside for the entire year. We have the $33,000 something remaining. The amount of requests that are just being brought forward tonight, not that we're voting on, is for $212,000. So that's already over the amount that we would have allocated for the entire year in general. Doesn't mean that that's not something that the committee we can still do that, and Pat would give information on any fiscal concerns if you all ask him, or whether that's feasible, but just to put it in frame of reference within all of that. Any questions?
Also, as a point of reference, how much more can we pull into our supplemental budget?
Pat on that.
Well, I mean, I hadn't really tried to work that out. You mean a maximum amount without bankrupting the S&A fund, right? If that's your question, it's kind of a big number.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more like $1 million. But there are reasons to keep things safe aside, and some of those are in the S&A guidelines. I would think that something prudent would be maybe most of what we assume will come back when we sweep all of it carried forward. That seems to kind of make some sense to me. I don't know if I give you an answer here, but bigger than a bread box. But it's, in a dire emergency, if something needed to happen, there's more than what's coming back into the what's being swept. That's supposed to be the
And to go off that, I mean, really, and we can look at a number next week when we're looking at increasing what we're going to increase it to. The 2 things to keep in mind is, one, while we have the funds, similar to Pat just said, the money in there is really for those unexpected pieces to come up. Because let's say that something does happen that suddenly costs $200,000 for one of our funding areas that is unexpected, there's no way they're going to be able to make up that cost out of their base funding typically. To where that's that rainy day fund, to where we have the ability potentially to use the reserve money for those supplemental requests.
And we've had some stuff with the radio station over the years that they needed equipment.
Maybe one coming.
Okay, I didn't know that stuff.
Yes. We'll see where that goes. So keep that in mind. The other part being is that we don't want to necessarily say, well, let's put $500,000 in and just approve everything that comes, because we still want us to be intentional in what we're funding and being fiscally responsible, even though knowing we have money available.
And this is still, a recommending body, so it still has to, even if it makes sense to us, it still has to make it through the BFC. And if any items more than 25,000 has to go to the trustees, so it's not necessarily free money day. And we get to choose. That's not really quite. If there's a good strong case and it solves a long-term problem, I think we get it.
All right. Thank you. Did that cover everything?
Oh, no, we didn't go to base funding recommendations. Those ones, so
Yeah.
student government.
Student government has no feedback. They agree with everything and we did a very nice job.
All right.
That's all I got.
Thank you.
The administration, and we will have something formal in writing at some point, which is why I'm checking my email. I will tell you unofficially, based on Dean DeShields and Provost Frank, theirs was similar, is that they're fully in support. They appreciate some of what I said, the amount of time and thoughtfulness that goes into it. The only feedback, which is similar to what we had already put, and they did get a copy of our draft allocation, simply so that way they had some idea, again, knowing that it's not finalized until you all approve it tonight. The only area where there was agreement specifically from Dean DeShields was in regards to West Side advising, that he would like to see that coming from the state funds as well, which I know there are others in the room who would probably agree that they would like to see that coming from state funding as well, but is fully in support of the allocations that we put forward at this point.
All right. Thank you. Is that all for?
Yep.
Okay. Moving on to section 6, public comment. First from the academic advisor from the west side.
And speaking of the funding for the advising, yes, I would like it all state funded, but right now it's not. What I wanted to let you guys know is that we have some additional carry forward funds in that S&A funding for that half a position because of having a position vacant at different times over the last 4 years. What I'm wanting to do is to actually move my advisor 100% onto that budget for the rest of the fiscal year. And part of my reasoning for that is that we have some unfunded advising positions currently within, I have half a position unfunded and the exploratory area has 2 unfunded positions. So we're trying to get as much salary savings in the state budget as possible to fund those for the rest of the fiscal year. It'll still give you guys some carry forward. Speaking about small little pots of money, it's still going to be money coming back to you guys at the end of this anyway. The amount I have left, I can't spend it all in making this move, so there'll still be funds available for you guys after this. So I just want to let you know what my plans are. So, any questions, thoughts? Okay, great, thank you.
And moving on to public comment from the CLCE.
Thank you so much. Good evening. My name is Manuel Rodriguez. I'm the Director of the Center for Leadership and Community Engagement. I came to you all last month in a request for S&A funding for next 4 years. And so I want to first of all thank you for providing us that funding to continue with our services. I also presented our new structure moving forward with bringing in a program manager and filling that position starting July 1st. And the reason why I'm here today is to let you know that our intention is to see if we can bring this individual on by mid-next month, mid-April, and use some of our carry-forward funds from a vacancy within the director position before I came in, and also a couple times throughout these last 3.5 years of a position of an office assistant position that I spoke to in in February about us changing that position into a program manager because of the increase in our programs, student support needs and so forth. And I wanted to just kind of go over the numbers a little bit. We have about 165 in carry forward, about 62,000, 62,000 of that is revenue. And so we're looking at about just over 100,000 in S&A funds. We're hoping to bring this person in, again, mid-April to June 30th, at which point beyond that we'll use our structure and funding that we've been provided for you for the next 4 years. And approximately 15,000 of that 100 will be used for this position. Again, we have done some preliminary forecasting. We do anticipate that there will be some money coming back to S&A from those funds because we are unable to spend that fruitfully. So between 50 to 70,000, I'm assuming that will be coming back to S&A. So I'm just wanting to provide that information in good faith, given that we've given that funding to support our center, not in that structure, but due to need and some changes within our office, we feel that's the best way to use some of those funds in order to support our staff, our students, and our community. So I just wanted to see if there are any questions or concerns moving forward. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And moving on to public comment first call. Is there any public comment at this time? Seeing none, moving on to section 7, old business. Voting on supplemental funding request 1717, Get Lit, the Literary Festival, in the amount of $482.40. The table is open for discussion.
Probably sitting in your stuff
Heard
before.
it from before.
Yes. We don't have all the electronic ones right now. Pat can search for it. That one, and I'll just give you the rough
If
summary.
you look at the minutes from
17,
March
17.
8th,
It does have the info in the
it
minutes.
has kind of the info of it.
Requesting $482.40 to attend the Get Lit Literary Festival in Spokane. They're sending one. There are 8 professional and creative writing major students who are going to be attending that session. The money is really to cover the cost of the workshop cost and then gas to get to Spokane. Or I apologize, sorry, they're covering the food, gas, and workshop. The money is to cover their hotel accommodations.
Just the hotel, yeah.
So they're requesting for the 8 of them $482 to attend this festival.
Seems like a reasonable amount for you.
And they're paying for like everything else too.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the full amount.
There's a motion on the table. Wait any seconds. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? 1 abstention, motion passes. Moving on to voting on supplemental funding request 1719, the annual AAIP CCM workshop in the amount of $1,043. Table is open for discussion.
Also found in the minutes. This one was the same student. This is the one, as a reminder, who came in and presented 2 in the same night. The other one we voted on because of the timing of that fell over break. This one is coming up later on in April at the end of it. It's taking place in Santa Fe. The only part on there I don't recall was, but I don't think the students here.
She's looking.
Okay. I do know that on there that had put in that she's requesting $1,043 both from S&A and from ESC. And saying that if got funded, it would split the cost on there because the total amount needed is $1,493. and was requesting $300 for academic senate, paying $150 for personal funds. So only needing $1,043 remaining.
Probably don't have any information on other funding sources.
On where things are with the ESC.
Yeah.
I may ask and refer to the gallery to see if there may be any information that the gallery may know. But I'll just ask a question. This is a request to attend the annual cross-cultural medicine workshop from student Christina White. I don't know if this request has been
We
heard.
have not received it.
Okay. So that's the also, since you don't have them as a point of information, we did fund, and that was one of those we was talking about, fund the other request for the Gathering of Native American Workshops for the full $767 for the student to attend.
Seems, oh god, it seems a bit expensive, but since we funded her for the 700, and that was in, was that in, somewhere in Washington, it was like on an island or something, right? If I remember.
Yeah, somewhere in
correctly.
Washington.
Somewhere in Washington, and she's going to stay up there, it's, I don't know, it seems like she's been kind of looking for it, even though she hasn't. So, yeah, but it does seem like similar to our other number if we're going ratio-wise, like where she's going.
My only reservation about this is that she's just going by herself. There's no two going by herself. I don't know if that should really make a difference or not, but for some reason, like that was, I think that was in the minutes, that was my question. Like, do you have any other students? She's like, well, I just kind of found out about both of these, and so I want to go to both of them alone, which I mean is super great that she's an ambitious student. I just, for some reason, feel like.
We did two,
Yes.
we funded two last year that were individuals. A lady went to Bangladesh or something.
Yeah.
Right, to a conference, and there was a gentleman who went to
Yep.
So it's not uncommon, it just hasn't come up.
Plus, isn't she, did she say something about the program that she's like, really small, there wasn't a lot of people who were studying that she knew of, maybe some undergraduates, but not that she knew of. And she's bringing it back to source. That was what she said, that she's going to bring her findings back. I believe from both of them, but
Well, it's not unique. I think the unique part was just that she was requesting two conferences in the same night. That's really
Right.
I think the other part of this one too is that she has a little bit longer to fundraise. She said that she found out about both of them really soon, and so that first one happened really fast, but this one, I think she's probably had a month to fundraise, or a couple weeks, so.
based on when we got it, at least.
Also, as a point of information, the request can be tabled if you guys want more information. If granted, if she comes back.
We can send a request for more information, if you feel that that would change the amount that you would fund or request.
What are her expenses in there?
The listed expenses are, I apologize for anyone who's not auditory, $350 for registration, $328 travel round trip, $55 for the shuttle, $440 for hotel, and $320 for meals.
nights was it?
4 nights. So 4 nights at $110 a night for the hotel, 5 days of meals at $64, which is the per diem that we're
And in this case, we can fund
We have the ability, again, the precedent is that we typically don't, although she has 150 of personal funds as well as money from academic senate. They could be viewed as going towards that. Or you all could look on there and decide what, changes you would like to cover, and I'll tell you that now.
I mean, hotel seems a little expensive, but for one family, but I don't know, like, hotel prices that much. Otherwise, I think your prices are pretty accurate.
Maybe an idea is doing half of what she requested from us, and then maybe she would get half of ESC's money, because it's a little lower amount, and she's more likely to get it.
It would be $521.50.
I'd like to make a motion to approve $551.50.
There's a motion on the table. Is there a second? Jacqueline seconds. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? 2 abstentions, motion passes. Moving on to old business, section B, voting on base funding recommended allocations.
So again, at this point, you should have the lovely spreadsheet that we stared at for many, many hours in front of you. This is really just the cleaned up version of what we had on there. For those whose memory and mine was still working at 9 p.m., you will note that the number is slightly different at the bottom simply because 2 of the areas we had put in the flat funded amount and didn't allocate for them decreasing.
The spreadsheet's on the back of that, yeah, on the back of the draft.
So you'll see, other than that, this is all the pieces that we had worked to allocate. And again, student government and administration are in support of that column, which yours isn't colored, so the third column over. With the full allocation amount being annually $7,092,027.
And if you remember, I think we said our target was 7.1 million. And when we left that night, we were 7.1 million and a little bit of change. So the 2 areas that inadvertently had more funding only changed the total by less than $20,000, which it's down. So there's no sleight of hand here. It was just the result of a 9-hour and keyboard not working so great. But it should match all the text front, and it should be what the committee came up with.
So at this point, knowing that we had made the motion to approve this, this is the part where we officially will vote on what's going to go forward to BFC. Knowing that we have to provide the opportunity for student government administration in case there are any recommended changes for us to entertain. So unless you all have any added changes from what we had before, since there were no recommendations, you can simply vote to move this forward at the already proposed amounts.
Yeah, let's do that.
Is there a motion on the table?
Yeah, I move to approve the recommendation as they are.
Motion on the table. Is there a second? Elena seconds. Is there
I was like, you hate this.
any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? 1 abstention, vote or motion passes. And then
And then the justification. So then that document should be attached as well. This is the one that Vinay had sent out earlier. This is based on Vinay's notes from the meeting and some shoddy memory work on my end to remember roughly what we had said in terms of justification. So if you all haven't had the chance to look over, mostly to make sure that this is roughly what you all, the amounts are right, but this is the justification behind why we're funding it at the levels we're funding them at.
And I have a question. The ones that we funded at 0, is there a letter that goes to these folks?
That are getting none?
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, just as an update, all of the base funding request areas received an email from me letting them know what the initial allocation recommendation was from the committee, so saw where that was. After tonight's vote, they'll get another update saying where things are in case they change. And they'll also get a copy of they have not got a copy of this justification form yet.
Okay, I just was wondering, because that.
Yes. They do know that the initial recommendation was not to fund.
Those that are funding, the funding amount is zero. We might want to look at those and make sure we have those right.
Specifically.
Because those folks might read this a little closer than others. So the last one, WSDLP.
You're working from backwards.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I would say the first one is the History Club, bottom of page 2.
yeah, okay. So that's it.
And then the next one is the S&A advisor, top of page 4. Smashing Stigma, partway through page 4. And then the WSELP, at the bottom of page 5. And yes, please definitely make sure that the Smashing Stigma and WSELP are correct.
It seems like I remember.
Again, we can make any edits or changes, otherwise there does have to be a motion to approve.
A motion to approve funds allocation.
There's a motion on the table. Luke seconds. Is there any discussion?
I
Sarah?
have a quick question about the academic advisor website. I know we kind of talked about this already, but I'm just wondering if we're at any risk for another Seattle Times headline saying that we're spending money inappropriately.
Not based on the audit previously,
Okay.
because this position has been funded for, I don't remember how many years, at least the last how many I look at, 12. Scott's gone, so I can't ask him. There is some question, and it really comes down to the question on here for the audit piece, which I know our Attorney General feels we've answered sufficiently, is that this is more on the programmatic side, not out of the normal university function, and not solely in the academic side, because they're providing support services to the students. But yes, that question has been raised, and that's also why the committee continuously puts, they would like it to be fully funded by the state.
Okay. Yeah, the language is pretty strong, but I'm wondering, make it stronger by making that point.
Pass that along to the
Okay.
administration.
Thanks.
But yes, yeah.
All right,
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed?
No, I don't.
Any abstentions? One abstention. Motion passes. Moving on to section 8, new business, the Veterans Center carry forward.
I look here. Not really. Wow. I-
yeah.
Is it turned on? Please.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Ruben Cardenas. I'm the director of the Veteran Center. So today I'm requesting for a carryover from our current quadrennial cycle funding. I'll just tell you a little bit about background of the memorial that I'm going to talk about. So it was first created by student government in the winter of 2016 and chaired by Hauke and Renee. Some of you might know them. They just recently graduated. So that's how the task force was created, and they asked other students from around the university, and then also staff and faculty to be on the committee to build a memorial on campus. So we had a really aggressive timeline originally, and it wasn't met. So the committee continued to work on the project, and currently it's chaired by Brittany Kinsella, who's here now. So we're making progress. Really the purpose is to memorialize our fallen veterans here on campus. There's a lot of other campuses around the nation that do have memorials for veterans. I'm sure that you guys are aware of those. Yeah, is there any questions about that? So this is kind of what the memorial, a mock-up of what the memorial is going to look like.
So that's the international building plan?
Yes.
So this is kind of like library?
Yeah, I have like a top view location of where it's at, but just wanted to give you the scale of the project and the person standing by it. I think the tallest pillar is either 8 or 9 feet, and it's basalt stone. The committee has decided to have a post 9/11 theme for the memorial, so it's going to have a list of names on the memorial of Washington KIA service members from 2001 to now, from conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan. So it's kind of what it will look like. That's the location, northwest corner of the Flag Plaza. It's called Flag Plaza, and there's a library L&L. So just to give you guys a reference of where it's at. So the location has already been approved by 2 committees. EFC committee, I can't remember.
Enterprise Facility Committee?
Yeah, EFC.
And the Bryson Letters.
Yeah.
Site development. Keep going, I'll show you.
So 2 committees, the site's been approved. That's where it's at. The cost estimate is $140,000 to $200,000. From what I understand, basalt stone fluctuates depending on the time of the year that you're going to buy it, and then depending on the contractor that builds the memorial, there'll be some fluctuation in cost as well. So we have about $60,000 dedicated to the memorial. So if we're going with the lower end price, that's about 43% of the cost of the memorial, without any fundraising efforts yet. So, yeah. This is what our balance is as of February. March hasn't ended, so we haven't reconciled our budget. But with our estimates and what we plan to spend throughout the rest of the year, we want to dedicate $20,000 to the memorial, kind of what I originally allocated last year. But since the memorial isn't being built yet, I need to be able to carry the money forward so that it can be used towards the memorial. So, again, I want to reiterate, this is a student-led initiative. It's chaired by a student government person, so that's what I would like to do. Is there any question?
Any questions?
So this is what we vote on
Yeah.
at some point?
Yes. Unless the committee wanted to move it this week, we would do our normal, we will vote on it next week for approval.
I have a question.
Sure.
The 60,000 that you said is already dedicated, who donated that?
So, do you want to chime in?
Student government has allocated it. So we're hoping to come next week and do the same thing so that we can have the money for when it is all fundraised, we can start building. So the money doesn't get swept and then we have to fundraise all over again.
And just a, I guess, additional piece, we have worked with Patrick to make sure that the funds are used properly. Any money that we do fundraise is going to be kept in a separate account, just so that the money is clean, I guess, is from what I understand it. So, if we do collect more donations, we're able to identify those donations and give it back to the people that we donated, depending on how much the final cost is of the project.
The unforeseen part is, you thought the schedule was, you had an ambitious schedule and you were hoping to have that.
At least started last year. Yeah. So we have done a lot of work over the summer.
Design, budget.
The location is what took a lot longer than we anticipated. And then there was a lot of conversation behind the actual design. So it took numerous meetings to agree on a design.
Multiple committees.
We don't have a committee as big as your guys', but yeah, we want to make sure it's done right. So.
Any further questions? All right, thank you. We'll be voting on this next week.
Very good.
Moving on to section 8B, supplemental funding request presentation, 1720, the ACS National Conference in the amount of $5,761, and they have requested that we vote tonight.
721.
720. What is your guys' decision?
I will add in there, the reason for the request is that when you look at it, this conference is taking place April 2nd through the 6th. They did get this turned in within the time frame we have. The challenge was with us not meeting officially during finals week or during spring break, that it pushed it up to the timeline of right beforehand. So it was not outside of the recommendation, it was just simply the timing of spring break.
Did you something tonight?
Nope. So we will look at it. Yeah. Committee can choose to go. Yes.
Yes, the table is open for discussion.
I'm not quite sure if there's a chemistry club, but I think it's interesting that they did a request from club standards. There's chemistry club.
Although I would point out, they do have, as you see under the funding from undergraduate research, academic senate, and then the McNair's travel funding. So my guess is that without them to be here, I don't know, but there's probably some reason, whether they're not in good standing with club senate or.
It looks like they put a lot of work into this, and it doesn't really make sense to me why they're not here. I also don't really feel the need to pay much attention to it if they.
I'll say it's hard to know without.
No, here.
Dr. Feeney?
If we do decide to table this, we could potentially still fund it retroactively. Is that the case? Or I feel like I remember having done that at some
Yeah.
point.
Yes, we would be able.
They won't be able to prepare it. They're leaving the sick.
What I don't know, and again, since they're not here, I can only speculate. And the challenge being that there's one person who's the point, as you can see, but there are obviously, what was it, 5 of them?
6 students,
2 groups.
2 grad students.
Yeah,
1
6.
undergrad.
So I don't know the other 5, we're aware. I don't know if whether they get funding or not would determine whether or not they're going. But again, we can't, it's up to the committee on what to do with this. Because obviously if it's postponed until next week,
They're not here.
and then they wouldn't be able to be here, but may have some sort of
Or
response.
they might be able to be here.
Yeah, well.
They can be here, they can be here. They don't
So we
go.
may get some response that if it's postponed and they end up not going, clearly we wouldn't be a point of discussion of that. I'm gonna double check to make sure no one's emailed me in the last half hour.
We have a phone number of it. It just wouldn't surprise me if they had the night off.
Yeah, I agree. I actually personally know some of the people who are on this, they should be here. So I think I agree.
I did double check, I did send it out to Hannah. That was the point, making sure this is not my fault, so. Yeah. Just as a point of information, if the committee is planning on tabling it, someone does have to make a motion to table it.
To make a motion to table this.
There's a motion on the table. Is there a second? For any seconds? Is there any discussion?
I'll just add that I'm gonna vote no to table it, that's just because I would probably change the motion to deny it. So that's my reason behind that.
Is that a friendly amendment?
That would be.
No.
They would vote down this, and that would be a second one.
All right. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? One abstention. That was Tom.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Okay, I'll abstain too.
all right. Let's do a retally.
Wait a minute.
If I may, can I say that? Because I agree that we should deny it. But if I may.
You can choose to
Just
just
vote.
vote no
Okay.
if you wanted to.
So we're gonna vote to
This is
table
voting
this?
to table.
Okay. A retally on a vote to table. All those in favor? Any opposed? 5. Any abstentions? 1 abstention. Okay. That motion has been
Does not
declined.
pass.
Yep. Now if someone wanted to make a new motion. So,
I move to decline the request.
There's a motion on the table. Is there a second? Spencer seconds. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Moving on to supplemental funding request presentation 1721, the graduation celebrations and cultural events in the amount of $22,000.
My name is Jenna Hyatt. I'm an associate dean student living. And I want to just come to you and explain what is I guess, happened to this moment and why we're here. When I took on this position almost 30 days ago, one of the things that came up was some commitments that were made from the prior person in the position. And it was from a funding line that is really to be suspended at this time. And so commitments were made to these 5 groups.
there are 5.
Thank you. You're so, yeah. These commitments were made to these groups to pay for their spring graduating, commencing, sort of capstoning the year events. And so they were in motion to do this. They have places all set up. They've got things in the works with catering and dining. So this is the budget that they were working on, and what was promised to them. The problem is I don't have a funding source for it. So I'm picking up from where it kind of got left off and where the funding source was suspended. And so that's where then Michelle was wonderful, because Michelle kind of stepped in and was working with the organizations and really brought this to light to say, hey, Jenna, this was committed, and what are we going to do? And so I come to you with this supplemental request to say, here's the problem at hand, here's why I'm coming with this, to help support the student groups to have what was promised to them in this matter. So, what am I saying?
So, Michelle Cyrus, Assistant Director of Equity and Outreach, and I'm also the Advisor for Equity and Services Council. One of the things that I do want to stress is that although the different boards have this function, students across campus participate in this. So many of the students that do participate in the end-of-year graduation celebrations aren't necessarily org students. So they come from the west side, they come from our center locations, as well as different students on campus because they may have affinity with one of these groups. They may, I don't know someone that's been affiliated with them and they want to be a part of their graduation celebration. And what these folks do is we have students from across campus, but we also have family members and friends that also come and are a part of this celebration with them. Questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why is it that they're different? Is it just the
Okay.
size?
It is. So just for example, I'll use, since Metro's the most, I'll use them as an example. Last year, Metro had, between students on campus and students that actually belong to the org, there were 80 graduates. And so when you start thinking about the 80 graduates, thinking about their peers on campus that also come and families that come, that's why they were allocated $6,000, and that's based on the last 2 years of what's been done for these celebrations. You got a second one?
My second one, how much money are the orgs putting in from like their accounts, or are they fundraising?
So this is what happened. They're not necessarily fundraising for this, and the reason why is because they were promised this money. So they've used their $3,500, the majority of the orgs, to go to their conferences. So this has been brand new and really hasn't been brought to them yet because we don't meet until Monday at 5 o'clock, and I will let them know that the funding that you were promised right now, there's a little challenge with that. So for example, when I think about Metcha, to go to their nationals, that was like $5,500. And so the students did do fundraising. If any of you bought tamales or anything, you see that they do that. FOSSA's conference is running about $4,000, and they have also, if you bought lumpias, with lumpia sales, they fundraise with that. So these orgs do, and they help each other. BSQ, you've seen them downstairs, they've been selling, but because they didn't know that they were gonna have to have money for this, they didn't plan for it.
Where was the money promised from before?
It's promised from a funding line from the previous associate dean out of Campus Life. And I'll have to be, to be completely transparent, which is what I'm doing, is there's probably 4 other things this spring that are committed out of that it's suspended. So when I get those contracts and information, I might be back here to say, I don't know what to do. There's certainly the option to say, we can't do it. These were committed and promised. Some of them are in contracts where they have been committed, and I'm talking about future stuff that I'm still uncovering and figuring out. This is the one that came pretty much the first week on the job to say, oh, we've got a big problem here. And it's taken us the spring break. We put this and submitted it first of spring break because we needed a good week in there to say, is this actual, what can we use it or not? We can't, it's completely suspended. So it's just not a funding source that is to be used. That's from the provost.
Does ESC have any rollover money that pay for the council?
So what we're doing is, if you see, we're putting $8,000 towards it, and that's just to pay for the stoves. That's not necessarily, and there's more orgs than this that we're paying for stoves for, but that's also including these groups here. There are graduation stoves that I don't know if you all have seen them. ESC covers those every year, and so we've estimated that to be about $8,000 that we'll put forward. I know looking at, if you happen to see the ESC budget, it's showing that we have something like $48,000, which we really don't have, because $24,500 goes to the individual orgs of their $3,500 allocation that they spend. We also have funding out right now just that haven't came in yet for like the Students of Color Conference. We have Brother that we're sending to Detroit. We're doing pull-up banners for each of the orgs. We have the winter warm-up that we're waiting for all the funds allocations to come in from that. Of course, our office supplies, our president's roundtables, our monthly functions that we have with the boards that we invite all students to come in and participate and learn about the boards. So when I look at that and look at the future projections, probably at the end of June, we'll have anywhere about between $3,000 and $4,000 that'll be left.
Not factoring this.
Not factoring that in, no. But because we you know, I mean, you had one come up here a moment ago. So when folks come and they're asking you for $1,000 or $3,000 or $4,000, they're actually coming to ESC and asking us for several thousand as well. And it's rare unless they don't fit the mission and vision of Equity and Services Council, we normally provide that for the students. And that's any student on campus can use ESC monies if it fits the mission and vision of ESC.
I know you slightly said this, but can you give just a little bit more of the historical backing of this type of graduation ceremony and for these groups and the context of that for the committee?
Okay, so what it is again, these particular orgs, all of the orgs do something, but on a little bit of a smaller scale. Like ABLE, for example, theirs usually comes to about $1,000, but they get different funding from sometimes disability support, you know, can help, or other little areas. But these particular orgs, because they have so many members, and as I said, they're not necessarily, that come to these graduation celebrations, they're not necessarily org members. They can be students from anywhere on campus. It doesn't matter. Actually, we have quite a few that come from the West Side and our East Side centers, our East Side satellite centers. And so, again, MECHA, BSU, for example, last year they had 50 students that were graduating, and out of those 50, 30 of them were actually part of BSU, but the other 20 were just students that were, you know, randomly on campus, and they wanted to be a part of it. They wanted to celebrate with their families, and thus we did the math for the last 2 years and came out with $4,500. Now, I do want to say, that's strictly food. One of the things that ESC, and we're also going to talk to some of the centers, because last year in the centers, we agreed that if the orgs came to us, we would allocate $500 per org. We're hoping that we can still do that when they come to us. So that's enough to cover like the room cost, the cleanup. Sometimes they want, you know, the extra decoration, and so the centers will be covering that, and that'll be COCE and the CDSJ that's willing to do that. I don't know if that really answered what you were wanting. So we're helping them in other ways to be able to pay this cost. So it would be more than that if they had to, say for example, the ballroom, and many of you have used that, so you know the cost of setup and tear down. And that's not including wait staff to serve the food. And that's not including what they may be charged for any utensils or whatever that might look like. And so what we're also doing, what we've done in the past, we give CWU, of course, catering first dibs on doing this. But I've also asked the advisors, I was able to email them last week and just said, hey, can you try to get several estimates? We want to give, you know, campus, again, first dibs on it, but try to get some estimates from the outside to see if it's even possible we can cut some costs somewhere. But I know our first loyalty lies to CWU.
Any further questions?
Well, I have one.
Okay.
I always like to, when there's something strange, I always like to go back to the supplemental funding recommendation.
Is it a question or for discussion next week?
No, it's a question.
Okay. Just
I
check.
just- Well, because I don't know that they've seen it, I want to ask the question. So, have you seen this before? So, non-base funded programs and requests for events. It says the nature of the event. What?
It's base funding.
It's
They are base funding.
Well, this is not here. This is supplemental.
for base
But
funded.
they are base funded area.
For an event,
Yeah, for a base funded area.
isn't that what base funded?
ESC.
ESC,
is what
Equity
this-
Services
Which is
Council.
all
I
of
see.
those, yeah.
Mhm.
That, EFC.
I was thinking more like elementary.
No, and if you remember from the presentation, we currently have 7 orgs and we're getting ready to up it to 10. So we're allowing 3 more to come in.
Any further questions? Thank you, we'll be voting on this next week.
Okay, thank you.
Well, yeah, and we'll talk about it.
Moving on to supplemental funding request presentation 1722, which is the marching band in the amount of $157,000, $150,892.51.
Hello, S&A, we're back again, because we are just so passionate about meeting the needs of our group. So, again, my name is Hannah.
I'm Sasha.
And I'm Maggie.
And we feel we've already kind of like bombarded you with our worthy cause and our vision and everything that we're trying to do. So if you want to refer, back to our, yeah, we got our packet up here.
Okay.
Sorry, this is the intro. So, if you want to refer to what we are and our mission, you can see section B. We have some of that kind of summarized there, but we've already talked to you a lot about that already. So, first and foremost, we want to thank you so much for the base funding that you have already approved. You more than doubled what we had in previous years, and we are really, really grateful for that. So, thank you.
Yeah, what you're looking at in front of you is what we were recommended by you guys to come in as a supplemental request. This is all the instruments and equipment that when we were looking through the base funding allocations when you guys were doing your guys' jobs here. And this is all the stuff that we took out of that, and you guys were recommending that we come back through as a base funding request for this.
And if these numbers seem like maybe perhaps overwhelming, it's because the idea behind the base funding was that it would be front-loaded within the first year to allow us to purchase all the instruments and equipment and stuff. You clearly are aware of this. So that's, I guess, why this looks so extreme in that sense. And again, this is just, this is a direct reflection on the need of the group, the growth and expansion over the year, as we've said maybe once or twice.
Yeah, the numbers look bigger because this is what the numbers would have been, except spread out over a 4-year quadrennial budget now, except it's just in one supplemental request.
Right, yeah, and just to reiterate, you've heard this many times, the equipment is absolutely necessary. We just haven't kept up with the growth of the group over the years and also the wear and tear of the instruments. Many of them are now kind of unusable, and so that's what you're looking at in front of you.
All the stuff you're seeing in front of you is stuff that we would buy and you'd be able to see next year at one of the football games. So.
Yeah.
Question?
Yeah, further questions.
So how many instruments and how many uniforms? Like, I'm trying to get a mental picture. Is this uniforms for the whole marching band?
So actually, uniforms for the marching band are not on this. We have color guard uniforms because right now they're in warm-ups. They're in sweatpants on the field. The uniforms we have on here are for color guard, which we don't own at all right now. And there's a couple. They have like plumes for the marching band. The ones we have right now are like tinsel and garbage. And another part of the uniform we have on here for the band are gauntlets, and they protect the sleeves so that we can get more use out of the uniform for more years, because brand new uniforms are really expensive. So we want to do what we can to protect those and not have to spend your money on that. So I think that covers most of the uniform costs on here.
Then the rest is instruments and...
Yeah. Instruments, like physical brass instruments, and also a lot of electronic equipment that we do not own right now, we don't have access to. But yeah. Percussion too. Drum lines wear over a long period of time, and so we put that on here as well because that will have to be replaced in the coming years.
$45,000 worth of tubas.
Oh yeah.
If you remember, we had the
Yeah. You guys played it for us. That was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just to allow. I mean, we had to turn people away this year when
Yeah.
we play. Yeah.
Plus, it's a good opportunity for anybody who plays a woodwind instrument to learn brass, like, as a future band director, like, that's pretty important.
Yeah, the tubas are a huge need. We like don't even have enough for people who already play tuba, let alone the people who don't and want to, so, yes.
So do people ever like bring their own instruments, or do you guys provide all the instruments for everyone?
We provide the marching instruments for them. The people can bring their own instruments. Sometimes also people elect not to use their own instruments because it can be weariful on them. Playing outside, people don't want to take their expensive classical instrument or whatever they want out there. We will provide them those instruments. But the majority of what you're seeing on here are marching instruments that are specific to marching band. So the sousaphones don't really serve a purpose. Most people wouldn't own a sousaphone like for on their own person. Most places would give them one because it's specific for marching band. But yeah.
The only equipment you're seeing on here is specific to marching band. I'm a trumpet player and I use my own trumpet, but no one is gonna own a sousaphone outside of marching band.
Yeah.
No one's gonna own a mellophone. That's like a it looks like a trumpet, but it's a French horn. Like no French horn player is gonna own that. There's no purpose other than our marching band, so. But they're vital to the group, so it's like it's a hard situation. Yeah.
So, I assume you guys have probably accounted for this, but out of the $73,000 base funding allocation, did you account for that allocation in this request?
Actually, we just cranked out some math, and yeah, totally. The way that we laid out the equipment request in the base funding allowed us for some freedom to make decisions, of course. And our base funding request actually almost came out to a little bit less, just a little bit less than actually what you see right here. But coming back for supplemental funds kind of required us to be way more specific in what we needed. So looking at this now, like this is obviously a much more detailed list.
Yeah. It's much more specific than what we had written on our base funding request. Did that answer your question?
Almost.
Okay.
So that 73,000,
Yes.
let's say for next year, would that be used towards these items, or do you have other expenses that you normally have to pay for?
Well, yeah.
Making the decision, I mean.
It depends. So, unfortunately, the equipment is like one of the most vital things in our group. It's like the highest need. So that's why we're here asking for that. If we're not, for some reason, able to meet the supplemental request, we will have to use some of our base funding for equipment, yes. We'll have to sacrifice some of the other parts of our goal to purchase the equipment because it's absolutely vital, yeah.
Well, my guess is that'll be more the emergency replacement when the equipment is dead.
Yes.
Yeah.
With this funding request, would this have essentially the full marching band equipment and instruments up to date?
Yes,
Yeah, that's the
this is gonna bring us up to speed. This will replace like years and years of not being up to speed, so, You won't see more equipment like this in the future, if that's what you're asking.
Mostly just wondering if this is all of it, because getting that there now, you all would be
Yeah,
fully
we would be happy as class.
Yeah.
So,
We would be set.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
That's about how, 10 to 20 years is about how long the drumline lasts, and I think we're on like 15, 18 years.
Yeah.
So, that's why.
Any further questions? All right, thank you. We'll be presenting on this next week. Voting. We're not presenting.
We can come back.
We'll be back.
You should bring the new sousaphones in. It's fun.
Yeah.
We should play a song.
Oh,
we should do that.
Actually, that would be awesome.
That'll be fun.
You know, Stairway to Heaven?
Oh, gosh.
So on the trumpet.
That's like a new project, right?
Yeah.
I'll figure it out.
Okay. And moving on to supplemental funding request presentation for the pet band.
Yes.
Yeah, that's also us. Again, you're looking at the same kind of thing in front of you. We've had growth, lots of growth. Also, still, thank you for approving the base funding request that we did get for this next year.
Yeah, you almost doubled that too.
Yeah,
so.
it's awesome. But you also, you also recommended that we bring all the equipment that got taken off of that budget also into a supplemental request, and this is what you're looking at in front of you. This, again, reflects the growth, the new direction we've got in our band, and the different sounds that we're trying to make, and this is an very detailed itemized list of what we're looking for, so.
Yeah, same spiel,
Yeah.
different group.
And I'm assuming same answer, that this funding request would get everything up to date. in
Yes.
terms of equipment.
Yes, yep, this is our ideal.
If you look through and like, obviously a lot of these are probably foreign terminology. Even some of them were to us, we were just like, whoa, what is this? And a lot about this is taking the group out of the acoustic era and bringing us forward into something that's a little bit more entertaining for the crowd.
Yeah, if you have questions about the equipment, we brought our electronic specialist.
Yeah.
He's here, so feel free to ask.
Say explain what a gig rig snake carrier is.
The snake is big deal.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
I'm getting the sense that you guys are like in the most dire situation that you feel like the group has ever been as far as like need for. Is that right?
Yeah.
Totally.
So if this request would get you guys up to speed 100%, like you're as happy as you could be, how often do you think you need to be getting more funding so that you don't come back here in 18 years and ask for this type of request?
Well, hopefully, as the years progress and the group, grows, we will stay up to speed with that, so we won't have such a huge ask in the future. We're not gonna wait to, triple or quadruple our funding request in the future. So yeah, hopefully our idea here with asking so much is that this will get us up to speed for now, and in the future, if we need to ask for another tuba or something, we will do that as we grow. And so, 18 years from now, we won't have another quadrupled budget. So.
Yeah, it's some of it's about the new vision too, and before we've been through a couple generations of the budget was pretty much the same, and we were just using what we had to go on. And this is just something that's just kind of been catching up with us. It was going to come at some point, but we've been kind of shifting it under the table. And then it's like, okay, with our new director, new vision, we gotta look and say this is what we need now after this has been so long. And if we keep up to date and on par as we should be, then this shouldn't ever have to come up again theoretically.
Right. Our budget had been stagnant for the last 3 quadrennial budgets. We had not really increased our funding at all. So that's why.
And I don't know if you all will know this, and this is a twofold, so I apologize for asking earlier. For marching and pep band, what other funding sources do the 2 bands have outside of S&A?
I know we had gone, for our equipment needs, I know we had gone to the provost office, and we went a lot of different places to see if we could get some of this equipment, and everyone was really supportive, but it never pulled through.
Yeah.
So we came to the reliable source.
But then there must be some in kind, or I don't think the S&A, there must be a faculty member that helps advise the marching band. That person must be using that out of the S&A.
And I can ask Lewis and then
Yeah.
to send.
That's a Lewis
So
question.
that's definitely a question.
Yeah. That's why I wasn't sure if you all would know, but mostly, and I'll make sure we have that for next week to see what other funding sources, just for general reference sake, marching band and pep band receive if from anywhere else on campus.
I have a question,
Yeah.
just because I don't know. So this equipment and the other equipment aren't the same, right? There's nothing that
Correct.
matches?
No, they do not overlap. It's a different group. Yeah.
And they can't be used for both, they're totally different.
Yeah.
Indoor, out.
I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly.
it's,
Marching band
it
stuff.
is, yeah.
Is for outdoor venues and for big stadiums. Definitely. Yeah, the pep band is for a basketball stadium.
Yeah, that equipment is gonna be much more portable too, than the marching band stuff, so, yeah.
Anything else? Other questions? Thank you. Thank you.
Moving on to section 9, other business communication received. I don't receive any communications.
The only one that I did, mostly just for the transparency sake for communities, we did have a funding request that came in over spring break. That was someone who was wanting to be funded for something that happened over spring break. One, since we weren't meeting, and two, since they weren't within the 15-day time limit, it didn't come forward to the committee. But
Moving on to section 10, public comment, second call. Is there any public comment at this time? Seeing none, moving on to section 11, adjournment. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting. Brady moves, Spencer seconds. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. This meeting is adjourned at 6:47 p.m.
that's so fast.